Okay, I think that everybody should be here now. So my name is Jenny. I'm the head of childcare at Jesters. So I am not based at one particular setting. I support all of our settings. So we've got our setting in Beaulieu, which hopefully the people that are currently in this session are just our Beaulieu families, because the beginning bit is specifically for them. Then at 6 o'clock, I'll be welcoming in the Bicknaker families, so that we can give the message to both of you at the same time, because it's quite relevant to both settings. But we just wanted to touch on this beginning bit first, just to talk to the Beaulieu families about what we've put into place at that setting specifically for this last term before the children start school. So we, as I said, I'm not based at a particular setting. I support all the settings. That involves supporting the managers. So at our Beaulieu setting, we've got Rachel, our curriculum and wellbeing manager, and Jessica, our operations manager. They're our dual leadership pair. They run the Beaulieu setting along with the rest of the team. I often come and support them at least a few times a week, either doing bits behind the scenes with them, or I go and observe in the rooms. I do monitoring, I check paperwork and just check that Beaulieu is running as it should be, along with the managers. We are also supported with our childcare director, who's called Jeanette. Jeanette used to work for Ofsted for about 15 years, and she also comes to support, to observe, to mentor, and to shape the practice at our settings. So they are monitored, the team are monitored quite a lot by members of the senior management team at Jesters, to be the best that we can be. So that's what happens behind the scenes. So what we tend to do once we've done those observations are that we would feed back to the team and give them some support about how we can help their professional development. So part of that might be that they could perhaps do things slightly differently. Can I ask that you're muted, if that's okay, when you enter? So yeah, some of it might be that they are offered some further training. Some of it might be that they're mentored. There's all sorts of things that goes in place to make sure that each of the team are working to their best ability and that they're in the best age group that they could work with. I remember when I first went into childcare, I was always babies, always babies. Couldn't imagine working with anyone else. And then I was asked to go into preschool, and then I thought, oh, they can actually talk back to you. It's quite nice. So, and then over the years, I've experienced all age groups. So it is sometimes nice to move staff around to support their professional development and just to keep them, you know, fresh and ready to learn and to keep them to be the best that they can be. So we do occasionally have to move stuff around the setting, which you would have seen over your time that you've been with Jesters. Now, this last term that we're doing right now before these children go to school, although school readiness starts from birth, it is really quite pivotal for the children's development. So that's why we want to make sure that this last term at Jesters, and specifically right now we're looking at our Beaulieu team, is the right team that we need to take those children to that next step, in light of everything that I've said previously, and just because of the cohort of children that we currently have at Beaulieu. So at Beaulieu, we've got all sorts of different children of all sorts of different abilities, and we want to make sure that they've got the best team possible to see them through this next journey onto going on to school. So for that reason, we have made some changes to the staff team that you would have seen that we've been sort of phasing in over the last couple of weeks. Rachel, our curriculum and wellbeing manager, hasn't been based in a room recently, but we made the decision as a management team that as our qualified teacher, we wanted her to be in our preschool room, leading from the front, supporting those preschool children and those staff to take that journey through to school. She obviously is experienced in working in a school, so she knows exactly what the children need to be able to do before they go to school. So she will now be based in our preschool room 4 days a week. So she'll be in there every single day, apart from a Wednesday, where she'll support the other rooms and keep up to date with her planning and her any paperwork and things like that behind the scenes that she needs to do. So Rachel will be leading our preschool room right up until those children go to school. We also have quite a lot of children in our preschool room that have some additional needs, and also we've got our third in charge, Becky. She will be based in preschool, but also she's really quite experienced. She's been at Jesters for a really long time. So we feel that her working alongside Rachel will give it the stability that preschool needs, and the structure and the consistency. So she will now be in our preschool room 3 days a week on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Many of you would have met Inish recently. She's our new outdoor learning practitioner. She's going to show herself in a minute once I've come off this slide. But she is going to be spending a lot of time outside with the children. That's more important now than it ever has been due to the pandemic and people's emotional well-being. And also we've got quite a boy-heavy cohort in this group of children in preschool, and I just feel that being outside, you can learn far more outside than you can inside. So that's why we decided to take on someone that really specialises in outside learning and is really passionate about the outside. She works 3 days a week on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday, but her days are flexible, so if she needs to come in to do bits with children on other days, then she is more than happy to. We've also got Chloe, who was previously in our squirrels room, but she's been moved into our preschool room. Chloe has been with us for quite a long time. Although she's not qualified at the moment, she is really, really experienced, and she was in our squirrels room before, and that room, she managed to do so much with that room, and we wanted her to replicate that in preschool. She's very structured, she's very good at routines, she's very good at educating the children and getting them to where they need to be. So we're really pleased to have her as part of the preschool room. And as a whole, those 4 are our consistent preschool staff going forward up until those children go to school. So I know it is another change that we've made with the preschool team at Beaulieu, but I hope you appreciate why we felt the need to do it and why we wholeheartedly believe that these people that you can see in front of you are the best people for the roles and will take those children to where they need to be. They're supported by our lunch cover, which you can see there, Naz and Helen. They work every day covering the staff's lunches. We've also got a bank member of staff called Lewis, who's currently doing university studies, and he does some support work for us on some days. So you may have heard your children talking about Lewis. And then obviously you've got Jessica, our operations manager, who supports all of the rooms, but she's predominantly based in the office. So that is our preschool team at Beaulieu. What we were going to do after this is then obviously we've got some of the Bitnaker families that have joined us while I've been talking, and then we're going to move on to the starting school information evening. But before we do that, is there any questions that anybody has that they want to talk about the Beaulieu specific team now? Or if not, we're happy to talk about that in the morning when you drop off, or when you're next in. So I'll just wait a minute while I let these last people in and see if anybody's got any questions or any of the team have anything else that they want to say, if that's okay. No? Okay. That's fine. If I can ask that you mute yourselves, if that's okay, until it's time to do questions, just because that helps with the speed and things. I'd like to apologise that my camera's off, by the way. Literally, just as this was about to start, it decided that, yeah, I needed to go into my settings. So for ease and not to get stressed with technology, as we're having to deal with these days, I've just left my camera off. So I hope that's okay. I'm not being rude, but that's why my camera's not working. So first of all, I'd like to say a massive thank you for coming along today. This is a great turnout that we've got today. And I think as much as it's difficult doing these things by Zoom, it's much nicer to do them face to face. It does mean that a lot more people, we've realised over this last year, are able to come to things when they're online. And obviously it's keeping everybody safe and it's not contaminating any bubbles. So thank you so much for coming along today to do this. Anyone that isn't here or that's joined late and might have missed bits, we will be sending the recordings on to you tomorrow. So this is our agenda that we've got today. So we've already gone through meeting Beaulieu's new preschool team. The rest is for both our Bitnaker and our Beaulieu sites together to see. So we're going to go through the school allocation process, appeals and deferrals. We're going to go through what happens next once you've been told what school your child's got. We're going to have a little look at what school readiness is, what schools a child needs to start school, literacy in early years, mathematics in early years, the transition that we're going to be offering the children that are leaving to go to school specifically this term, the first week checklist for when the children start school, any other useful information, and then answer your questions. So let's hope that this moves on. So this time last week, you were probably all sitting there biting your fingernails, waiting for the midnight or thereafter allocation to find out what school you went to. So that's all done and dusted. You've been told what school your child's getting, which is great. Hopefully you're all happy with that allocation. This team have been asking you over the last week what schools your children are going to, and they are there to support you with anything that you need. So if for any reason you're not happy with your school choice that you've been given, there are a number of options. So I will send you through these slides and you can click on the hyperlink to find out what to do if you're not happy. There are ways that you can appeal. We can do witness testimonies for that. But I'll be honest, the chance of appeal is quite slim of you being given that. But that being said, waiting lists change all the time. So if you're not happy for any reason, I would recommend that you stay on the waiting list. And even by the time it comes to starting school day, you may well have got a place. So, but I will send you, like I say, this hyperlink and you can have a look at what to do if you're not happy for any reason. You can also make the decision to keep your child at nursery if you want to until the term after their 5th birthday. But along with that, there are lots of things that go alongside that. So if that is the case and that's something you are considering, I would urge that you speak to one of the setting managers for more information about it, so they can go through the process and look at the pros and cons for that. So you've got your school choice. Hopefully you're happy. What happens next? So every school is very different with regards to their approach. Some you hear from them instantly by an email, a telephone call, a letter. Others, it might be that you don't hear anything for a month. So if you don't hear anything, don't worry, but obviously you can pick up the phone and speak to them. They all do things differently. Some do stay and play sessions that you can go along to with the children. Some do home visits. Some are obviously having to do virtual things. So there's all sorts of things that will be put in place to make that transition as smooth as possible for your child. It could be that it's just a couple of sessions. It could be that it's more. But while they're at Jesters, we will be doing all we can to support them, which we're going to go on to a bit later. We will, with your permission, introduce you to other families that have got children that are going to the same school as you, so that they can start to make those friendships. You can start going to the park with them, and there's just someone familiar when they go to school that they could perhaps walk through that gate with or sit next to at playtime. So we will go through that with you and get your permission, because that's really, really beneficial for the children. Don't forget to have a look at what's on social media as well. Lots of the local soft play centres do things specifically for your school. So I know Mace Place, and there's others that you literally go on that set day and you get to play alongside other children that are going to that school. I mean, I chose not to do the soft play one because I thought, what's the point? They're going to be actually in the soft play running around. But actually, it's not just for the child that will benefit, it's actually for you as parents as well. It's quite daunting, and I completely underestimated it when my daughter went to school. That step, them going to big school, it's a massive transition for the children, but it is for you as parents. Everything's really very different. You have to make sure they're in a set uniform. They have to bring certain things with them. You can't just call at any time and check how they're doing. It is quite different. So as much as the soft play things, yeah, the children might not play together, it's really good for you as parents and carers to start to make those connections and those friendships too, because you can all lean on each other and realise that actually, yeah, you don't know all the answers, but nor do they. You're all in the same boat together. So I would really recommend that you start to make those friendships with other parents and carers. Try not to talk about starting school too much. It's easier said than done. We found out last week that those children are going to school. You want to keep talking to them about it. Every time you pass the school, you want to point it out. But I'd actually recommend that you don't do that as much as possible. Go with the children. If they want to talk about it, then great. but try not to talk about it too much. You may think that they're really excited about it, but by the time it actually starts, it comes to starting school 3 or 4 months down the line, by you talking about it that much then could cause them to have some sort of anxiety and some stress. So please try not to talk about it too much until nearer the time. Start to look on your school's website at their dress code and start shopping for uniform as soon as possible. Sometimes there can be delays with the personalised items, so I would try and do it as soon as possible. There are also Facebook pages for second-hand clothing that you can get, because some of the children, they're so diddy when they start that you end up getting them a smaller uniform that they're only in for a couple of weeks before they have to go to the bigger one. So don't be afraid to perhaps look for some second-hand ones as well. But don't buy everything as soon as possible. As exciting as it is, things like shoes, we know that children grow really quickly, so try and leave them to as near as possible. I'd also recommend that you look out for any events at the school that you can go along to, like fun days, coffee mornings, anything like that, just so that those children get to experience the fun times when they start school, or before they start school, so that on that first day when they might be feeling a bit nervous, actually their last memories were eating donuts and, you know, playing fun games and things like that in the school field. So I would definitely try and look at any events over this next term that the school are running and see if you can go along, just because it will make you feel more comfortable if you start getting to know the setting, where everything is, the staff and the other children, and it will help that child to have those fun memories as well. So now is school readiness. What actually is school ready? What do you need to do to make sure that you're ready, your child is ready to make that step to school? Lots of people think that school readiness is about being able to write your name and count to 100 and things like that. But actually it's not. If you ask any teacher anywhere, they will say that it's more about the children being able to socialise with other children, that they can cope emotionally and separate from their parent and carer well, that they can look after their own personal care, which we talk about a bit later. So just being able to wipe themselves, get themselves dressed and undressed, do up their own coat, things like that. And just basically have a curiosity about the world and a desire to learn. That's what school readiness looks like. Lots of parents can be quite competitive about, oh, my child can write their name, they know all their 3D shapes. It doesn't matter. Every child blossoms at different stages in their lives, and we should just let them do that. It's really easy to get caught up into comparing children, but actually what we want is really sociable, confident, happy children. That's what we want. Children that are happy and excited and ready to learn. And just remember that our children in the UK, they go to school a lot earlier than any other country. So just let them be children. They've got plenty of time to grow up. The first year of school is all about learning through play, much like they do at nursery. They won't get homework straight away. To be honest, they probably won't even put their PE kit on for the first term. So don't put too much pressure on yourself and your child to make sure they're school ready, because that first term is really, that's not what it's about. You know, for most of the first year it's quite relaxed, but certainly for the first term it is. So just ignore everyone else and just focus on yourself and your child and making sure that they're happy, ready to learn, that they're as independent as they can be, getting them to start to use a knife and fork properly and cutting up their own food and things like that. That's what's important. None of the other stuff is important. And we will go into more detail about literacy and maths and things in a little while. So the main things are that the child can separate from their parent carer well. What we have started to do because of the pandemic, which has actually helped in our favour with this, is that now we drop off the children at the door. Parents don't enter the settings, which is very similar to what they do to school. So already, that, you know, one of the only positives to come out of this pandemic is that children, excuse the typo I've just seen in there as well, that children can separate from their parent and carers a lot better. So we just need to carry on with doing that. So for the purposes of COVID, you know, not being as prevalent, we will carry on doing this process because we feel that it's really benefited the children. Making sure that they can follow simple instructions, that they can go to the toilet and wipe themselves unaided, to be able to get themselves dressed and undressed so that they're getting ready for PE, that they can do up their own coat, to be able to express themselves and talk about their feelings. They don't have to know that by the time they go to school, but definitely start to talk to them about what they're feeling inside, and to try and express themselves, and if they're feeling angry, sad, happy, and why they might be feeling that way, so that they can start to explain that verbally as opposed to using anything physical. To be able to recognise their name on a coat peg or a bag so that they can find their own belongings. To be able to sit there for short periods of time because they start to do circle time and registration at school. And just generally to be happy. That's all anyone would ask, for a child to be happy and ready to learn. I'm now going to pass over to Caroline, who is going to talk to you a little bit about literacy. So Caroline is our Curriculum and Wellbeing Manager at our Bicnaker setting, and she is going to do a little bit here for you.
Hello. So we promoted literacy all the time at nursery, but obviously this next term's extra important. So got lots of ideas that you might do at home as well. But some of the things we're really focusing on for promoting literacy is the children's fine motor skills. So the teachers won't expect them to be able to write their names as soon as they start school. If they can, that's great, but obviously all children develop at different rates, like Jenny said. So what we're trying to do is really develop them fine motor finger skills. So we'll be doing things like lots of construction, building with Lego and Duplo, painting with cotton buds, so they're getting that small fine motor marks, using tweezers to move pom-poms from different trays, posting coins into money boxes and unscrewing lids. So all of those kind of things are really developing their fine motor skills, pre-writing, so they can help before they even hold a pencil to be able to write their name. But as I say, if they can write their name already, that's great, and we'll be developing that further. Oh, sorry, something's come sharing the screen. We also have a sound of the week that we do at nursery. So we'll look at a different sound each week, which we already do. And we have a word to go alongside that as well. So like this week it's I. So I've been learning about I in lots of fun ways. We might look at different things in our environment and see what we can collect around the room that begins with an I. Hopefully if COVID gets better, we can ask you to bring in different objects from home as well. And again, we just encourage that as much as you can at home, so you can play I Spy, different games as well. And for mark making, to make it fun, rather than just giving them a pencil and saying, oh, can you write I, we'll make it a fun way. So we do that in shaving foam and encourage them to write different sounds in shaving foam or mud. So again, we've got quite a lot of boys in both of our settings this year that are going to school. So to make it more fun and enjoyable for them, they might want to get a stick and write it in mud. So again, you might want to do that kind of thing at home. Lots of different ideas that we'll be giving you, but really it's all about promoting them fine motor skills and making it as fun as possible for them, as well as promoting their listening skills. So we'll be playing lots of games so they can get to listen and guessing what different sounds different things make. So we might hide something behind a screen and say, oh, which instrument is it that we're making, as well as making our own little instruments, so they can really get to know them different environmental sounds before they start learning their letters and sounds. And all this is developed from a government scheme that is called Letters and Sounds. So that's what we follow, phase 1 of that. So a lot of parents think that children need to know all of their sounds and writing, but actually that's what they learn in reception year. So what we're really focusing on is before that is listening to our environmental sounds and just all those fine motor skills before they're ready for that reception year. Yeah, thank you. I'll pass you over to about mathematics.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate as well, when you're thinking about early literacy, actually the comprehension skills are really important as well. You'll find that in the first term, your children will be given wordless books, and that is so that the teacher can assess how well they understand the story and what's happening within it, because throughout their school journey, even thinking up into year 2, if they do the SATs, the comprehension is a massive part of that. So if you can teach them those early skills now, and even picking out bits from the story, like how many sandwiches did that child eat, or can you find there, those are really, really important skills, not just the being able to sound out the words and breaking the phonemes and the digraphs and everything down as well. So just want to add that on. So on to maths. So maths as well, for all of us, we know that maths is a yes or no answer, isn't it? You can either be right or you can be wrong, but it's really important that we teach the children the skills of, you know, the process rather than just the final outcome of that. So, you know, allowing them to make those mistakes and working out the equations will be a really useful skill for them to take away the stress of, you know, and the stigma of maths. You know, from my experience with families, they shy away from maths because either they're not, you know, confident or comfortable in doing it themselves because of how they were taught at school. So it's actually flipping it on its head and making sure that we're embedding that maths is a really fun thing and it's everywhere, and not being afraid to tackle it together. So, you know, the maths is in every single area of the classroom, from when you pick up a glue stick to knowing that it's a cylinder, to, you know, looking at the clock and recognizing the numbers, to walking through the door and counting how many seconds it takes to get from one place to another. It's all around us. So it's seizing those early opportunities as well with your children. I know that, you know, most of our families in Beaulieu, when you're walking along, do you point out the door numbers? Do you see how many grey doors you can see? Do you see how many birds you've counted on your journey here? It's using that language all of the time so that the children become more familiar with those sorts of terms. So also, we don't expect the children to count to 100 or even to 10. It's actually understanding what those numbers mean and what they look like in different contents. So, you know, I've got 5 bagels. That's what that looks like for number 5. I've got 5 leaves. What does that look like? And actually understanding what that number actually represents rather than just what it looks like. So again, if you embed those skills now, it'll be really useful for when your children do start to go to school, because the teacher's not expecting them to know all of the numbers in the world. You know, from my experience, I probably spent about 2 terms doing teen numbers, because that's what children stereotypically struggle with. So, you know, preempting that and being able to support them with those skills will be really useful. And it's good to have that insight into what the expectation of the teacher is. So yeah, but just thinking about all of those things. And, you know, it's not even until the end of the term where you're thinking about adding, and you do simple things like adding 1 more, 1 less, and all of those skills. So those are actually really advanced skills. So when you put it into that context, the expectation is a lot lower than what we assume it is. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, that was Rachel Morris, our Curriculum and Wellbeing Manager at Beaulieu. We've now got Becky Pardo, our Operations Manager at Bicnaker, who's going to talk to us a little bit about transition from jesters to school.
Yeah, so transition is a big part of nursery and early childhood anyway. So there's transitions between rooms, there's transitions from home to nursery, but one of the biggest transitions that your children will go through is from us to big school, as we like to call it. So obviously we're going to continue to support this through encouraging their independence, particularly in the bathroom. As Jen said earlier on in the slides, they will be expected and asked to be able to manage their own toileting needs and their own personal care. So that is a big thing for your child to be able to do. So obviously if they can't do that right now, can you start practicing and supporting them with that at home, and we can do that obviously here. Another time where they will obviously need to be quite independent is at meal times. So we will start introducing things like the dinner trays in our home corners, so that the children can get used to carrying them. At present, the children in the preschool room do self-serve their dinner. So the dinner is served onto trays, and then they'll serve their own portion onto their plates. So we're encouraging them independently to serve their dinner. So again, if that's something that you are able to do at home when you're sitting at the table as a family, that's another way that you can support your child with, carrying their own plate, cutting their own food up. We'll be supporting them right through till the end of August to get them ready for that. We'll also be introducing our PE sessions. So each week we will do a PE session. We will rotate it so that every child gets to have a go. We will be encouraging them to practice getting themselves undressed and dressed, because again, this is something that will be required when they go to school, because there is generally 2 adults in a class with about 30 children. So you can imagine if they had to help every child, that would take a very long time. So this will include their t-shirts, their shorts, their shoes. So we will be encouraging them to practice doing that. So some of our PE sessions will be purely practicing getting undressed and dressed, because for the first sort of half term to a term, they might not actually, once they go to school, actually partake in an actual PE lesson itself. It might be that the teacher spends the first half term just carrying on that support and that practicing of getting themselves dressed and undressed. So again, if you can do that in the mornings, when your child is getting ready for nursery. I know it's sometimes quite tight on timing, and it's very easy to just go, right, mummy will do that or daddy will do that. It's very easy to do that. But if you've got the time, if you could just try and support that independence in that aspect, that would be great.
Can I just reiterate from a teacher's point of view, from a previous, when I was doing my newly qualified teachers year, I'll never forget the first time I was in reception and they did a PE lesson, and it was like, right, I had a massive plan of what we were going to do. There was obstacles, you know, it was going to be amazing. And we spent the whole hour getting changed. And I just remember looking around at my teaching assistant and being like, what is happening? So if those skills are super, super important, and all of their teachers will really, really appreciate if they are able to do those things.
Yeah, so in our PE lessons, alongside getting undressed and dressed, we will look at the physical side of PE and their physical development, but we will also be focusing, particularly post-pandemic, on the child's emotional well-being as well, because it's not just all about, can the child jump up and down, can they, you know, can they jump off an object and land appropriately. It is all to do with them actually feeling emotionally safe and emotionally well. So we want a focus on both physical and mental health as well. So that's a big thing at the moment. With regards to healthy eating and lunches, the schools actually, there's a scheme in place where in Key Stage 1, so that's up to Year 2, you can opt for free school dinners. Some schools offer this in the form of a hot dinner. Some schools offer this in the form of jacket potato, but you know, stations, salad bars. Some schools actually offer a packed lunch alternative, so it's still a packed lunch, but it's one made at school rather than provided at home. But having said that, we will be offering time for the children to bring in packed lunches to nursery, so that if you are going to go down the packed lunch route, we can practice undoing our lunch boxes, opening our water bottles, pouring our own water, all those sorts of things to increase that independence when it comes to meal times. Because again, they won't be there necessarily with their teachers at lunchtime. They'll have lunchtime assistants and school dinner ladies, so it's not going to be a one-on-one situation. So we will give that opportunity at specific times for the children to all bring their packed lunches in together to practice that process as well. So that's another way of us increasing that independence for those children. We'll also be providing some photo books at each of the settings, just showing photos of each of the schools that your children will be going to. So we'll put in there pictures of what the school looks like from the outside, maybe what the school hall looks like, where they're likely to have their dinner, what their reception teacher looks like, what their classroom looks like, all those things that they won't necessarily have seen before. And then that's a discussion point that we can talk to the children about in circle time when it comes to school readiness. We'll obviously filter that in when we feel appropriate. As Jen said, we don't want to overload them with you're going to school, you're going to school, you're going to school, but equally we want to also prepare them for what that might look like. So in previous years we've had teachers in, obviously with the pandemic we're not sure how that's going to go, so actually if we can introduce those children to what the new school will look like, then obviously that's going to help with that transition as well. And the other thing that we will be introducing into our home corner is a selection of the school uniform that the local schools will be having. So the schools that your children are going to go to, we will ask them for some donations for our home corners, so that they can practice putting their school jumpers on. They can talk about what colour their school uniform is, what their dresses might look like, what their trousers might look like, and then that's a talking point for the children also within the home corner. So it's all part and parcel of easing this transition between us and what we call big school.
I'm not too sure.
I think we're leading on to Jessica.
Oh, well, there's this bit as well. Did you want to say any of that?
Yeah, I missed, sorry.
Sorry.
So we will, sorry, Jen. We'll be offering some small group play based on the schools. So we'll talk about the schools, what the schools will include, how many children there might be in their class, because we've got various class sizes. We've got some classes that may be down to maybe a group of 15 all the way up to 30, so we can talk about that too. If the pandemic allows, obviously, as I said in previous years, we've invited teachers in. Where possible, we will do this. It might be that we might do this in the garden rather than actually inside, but we will give that opportunity for the children to meet the teacher and for the teacher to see the child in the normal, their normal nursery environment. We'll also maybe offer some stay and play sessions to some schools where the children can all come and collectively stay and play together to meet new friends ready for the school term. We will obviously also offer some extra sessions in the summer holidays to ensure that those children who are term time only don't experience a massive gap between seeing children. So 6 weeks to a child is a very, very long time where they won't necessarily see any other children, and actually it will be quite nice if some of you are able to take on those extra sessions, so that there's not such a big gap between the transition from nursery to big school. And the children, we don't stop their place with us on the 31st of August. So if your child, some of the schools, it varies with their start dates. So some children will start with just mornings, some children will just go straight in 5 days a week, 9 till 3. Some schools will build it up, so they'll do mornings 1 week, then half, a lunchtime the next week, and then a full day the next week. We will work around you, so we're very flexible. So as long as we know when your child's start date is, we can work with you, even if that's late September. So please don't worry, we're not going to say to you, you have to go at the end of August. We'll work with you according to your child's start date. And then once they start school, there is obviously the opportunity with just as being an integrated service that you can opt for the wraparound care either side of school. So both our Beaulieu and our Bicknaker setting offer breakfast club and after school club, and also holiday club in the summer and the half terms and the Easter holidays. So that is also available to anyone that requires it.
Thank you, Becky. And then we've got Jessica, who's our operations manager at Beaulieu, who's going to talk us through what that, when I can get it working, there you go, what that first week might look like when they start school.
No, not a problem at all. I don't want it to come across like I am reading from the page, but you've got it in front of you, so fingers crossed it does all make sense. So obviously, come the first day and things like that, when you do arrive, it would be helpful if you could know exactly where it is that you're going. Some schools have different entrances for different year groups. They might have a different car park. We do know that especially the car park at Beaulieu can get very busy, and you can end up parking down the road, in which case you could be late and things like that. So it's sort of just, getting a feel for where it is you need to go, traffic, everything else depending on that. And the same at the end of the day as well. Sometimes in reception in year one, you might be able to collect from the playground that's gone on for the last couple of months, especially within schools. They've sort of been having queuing systems outside and things like that. So as long as you know where you're collecting your child and your child knows where they're going to be collected from, it should make that drop off and collection that little bit easier. Sorry. We know we did speak about having a PE kit and things like that available. We did mention as well that it's not, necessarily a massive thing for the first first week as such if you were in a rush, but it could be similar to almost what we have at preschool at the moment, where we have spare clothes and things like that the children bring in. So your school might require that to still be in place when they start. So it's worth knowing if that's something that needs to come in every day, or if it's something that can stay within the school, if they're going to, you know, have their own peg, where the children, if the children are going to know where their things are going to be when they go into the classroom, as well as obviously knowing where their classroom is. Sometimes it could be, you know, down one end of a corridor or on a different wall as such. It can be quite confusing for them to go to, you know, a bigger, broader corridor compared to, you know, what we can offer as a preschool. So it can be quite daunting of where they need to go and what doors they need to go through and things like that. So fingers crossed the teacher would do that as well. And then also the children to know who's collecting them at the end of the day. Sometimes it could be obviously yourselves as a parents, could be family members, could be relatives, and it could also be whether they're going to any after school clubs that you've got booked. Like ourselves, we collect from Beaulieu next door and do our after school club. So the children are aware throughout the day. The school implement almost like a system that the children can see in a different colour of who's going to Jesters out of school. So all of those children throughout the day know they're not going to be picked up by their mum or dads. They're going to be collected and brought to us. So it's just that little bit of, you know, they have a sense of what's going on and they have a good understanding of what's going to happen at the end of the day. So I'm sure there's going to be quite a few questions linking to this that the teachers would be able to help you with rather than us. We can just help you with what we know and what we've experienced, but we do know that name labels are extremely important, as they're probably more important than what we do in preschool anyway. And it links to the children being able to recognise their own name and recognising where their labels are. Sometimes you can have a name with, I don't know, a picture of a dinosaur or a paw print or something like that. It doesn't have to be their name if it's something you're a little bit conscious of, but as long as they have an understanding of where a label's going to be and they lose their jumper, they know that what they're going to be looking for within their jumper. So it's just giving them, you know, that little bit of an understanding and more of a sense of self for them once they enter the big world.
But don't panic too much if you suddenly think, oh, my child doesn't recognise their name, they don't know the initial sound, because obviously those are skills that they will continue to learn whilst they're at school. And during the first couple of sessions, the first couple of weeks, the teachers will spend a lot of time going through all of that with the children as well. You know, where's your peg label? Go and practice putting your bag on, practice. So it's not like they'll just be, you know, almost thrown into the deep end of like, that's it, we're expecting you to find it. They will be supported. One thing that's definitely worth mentioning is that it is really common for children to have revert back to having accidents. I'm talking about white accidents whilst they're at school, because they're in a different setting. Like Jessica mentioned, it's a completely different building, and even though they are being supported by the adults, it's not, you know, what we offer where we would go with them, we can support them. They are expected to be that much more independent, and that's why we're trying to get them to that place to stop that. But it is completely normal. So if that does start happening, don't panic. It is normal. It's just a transitional thing of them getting used to their new surroundings.
Perfect, thank you very much. So this checklist that's on the screen is from our school readiness leaflet, which will be given out to all of you. There's some lots of useful information in there, but just to add to it that actually isn't in there, something to be mindful of, definitely, like Jessica said, practice in the route and things like that, because something magical happens when children start school that doesn't happen when they go to nursery. Somehow half an hour of your morning just evaporates without you even realizing how it's happened. And 1 minute you'll look at the time and it'll be 8:05, and the next minute it'll be 9:25. I can guarantee you that will happen. So definitely practice and keep an eye on the time, because yeah, it will literally fly by. So, but it will be fine and the children will love it and you'll get them there. So that's all we need to worry about. So some useful information for you here. So we're going to give you all the school readiness information leaflet, so you can have a look through that. We will be having at least one more parents' evening before the end of term. But just to remind you, you can choose to meet your parents' your child's key person at any time. We have an open door policy. Our managers often have time when they're out of ratio, so they can cover the key person. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't let it build up. It's better. Problem shared is a problem halved. So do talk to us about it. That's what we're here for. And we've gone through this with cohorts of children every year, and sometimes our own children. So we will definitely be able to support you. There is the Cool Milk scheme, which we currently use at nursery. They also use that at school as well. So your child will get provided with free milk as well as the school meals. But your school, depending on how they do it, because they do it all differently, will talk to you about how to register for that milk scheme if you need to. Definitely have a look at the Lunchbox policy if you are deciding to take packed lunch for your child, if perhaps they're more of a fussy eater, to be mindful, because they are quite strict on healthy eating and what can be brought in to the setting. But do be mindful that there is a menu in place, and it often includes things like pasta and jacket potato. I'm not saying that that's great. My daughter is a bit fussy, and she just seems to have pasta and jacket potato every day. It's not great, but she's eating with everyone else. She doesn't feel any different. And then I give her something more substantial and healthy later on in the day. So don't stress that you think your child's not going to eat anything, because there are always alternatives that I'm sure they would like. Like I say, keep an eye out for any events at the school so that you can go along to those, any coffee mornings, fun days and things like that, because hopefully we'll be able to do those things this time round. Have a look. There's a link here for Pacey. There's a starting school toolkit to help you and support you, and just making sure that you don't forget the skills that the children need for when they go to school. I think this year's going to probably be harder than ever, because as things are starting to go back to normality and we can actually go to the zoo, the farm, we can go on holidays and things like that, I think we're going to have an amazing summer this year, whilst keeping ourselves safe. But we just need to make sure that we don't do everything for the children all the time, and we're still encouraging them to think for themselves about when they need the bathroom rather than us prompting them, and that we're just trying to get them to do independent, and we don't just get wrapped up into an amazing summer of busyness. And like we said, make friendships with other parents and carers to support you through the process. But they're there for a purpose, which is really, really useful. You can support each other through it, but just take things with a pinch of salt and don't get sucked into comparing children and things like that. So that's the end of our starting school information evening. So the next bit would be if anybody has any questions or anything or feedback, please, not radio silence, anything at all. Come on, guys. We've given up our evening today. Even if it's just a thank you very much, I learned one thing, or thank you very much.
Hi, guys.
Ian's got a question.
Yes, on.
Hi, guys. No, it's more of a feedback. So we've already got Blake, who is 5 and he's already in Bishops. And the process that you guys have gone through in giving the parents such a guide and such a detailed guide and helping them understand the process you have to go through when your kids start school, I think it's been absolutely brilliant. So just a positive feedback from us to say, absolutely brilliant. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Although there's loads of things we gained from experience from Blake, there's a few little things that you guys have highlighted to us that we're going to start implementing as well.
No, that's great. Thank you for that.
Ian and Rose, really appreciate that feedback.
Thank you.
I was going to just say thank you. It was really helpful to make you start thinking about things. Wasn't it? I've got Gracie with me. She's going to listen.
Hi, Gracie.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Megan.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, obviously we're back on the door tomorrow. So if there's anything that anyone wants to ask, you can send an email.